الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم ارحمنا فإنك بنا راحم والطف بنا بما جرت به المقادير. اللهم اجعل هذا القرآن الكريم نور صدورنا وربيع قلوبنا وجلاء أحزاننا وذهاب همومنا. اللهم علمنا منه ما جهلنا وذكرنا منه ما نسينا واجعله اللهم حجة لنا لا حجة علينا. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Tafseer al-Quran, that is the interpretation of the Holy Quran. And we have, a few weeks back, we have started with Surat Yusuf, chapter Joseph in Al-Quran, that tells the story of the Prophet of Allah, Joseph, peace and blessings be upon him, upon his father, grandfather, and his great-grandfather, and also upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon all the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to mankind. Last week, we talked about the brothers of Yusuf going to Egypt during the famine. And the famine is during the 7 years of Sab'un Hijaf, the 7 years of drought and famine. And Egypt was a place where it was self-sufficient, but also it really provided food and supplies to the surrounding areas. And the brothers of Joseph came from a long way from the Canaanites in Palestine, and they actually entered where Yusuf recognized them, but they did not recognize him for reasons we mentioned last week. He was much older from being a boy. They were themselves grown adults at the time when he left. So Yusuf, peace be upon him, provided them with the food, and then he talked to them before that and knew their story. Of course, he knows the story, but he tried to create a dialogue with them in order to understand their situation and to know about his father and about the whole of the family. So they mentioned Yusuf. They said that we lost him in the wilderness. He was eaten or devoured by a wolf, etc. Of course, the same lie. And they talked also about Benjamin, Yusuf, from the same mother and father, while the 10 brothers were from a father, but from a different mother. So when he provided them with food, and the condition was every person comes, is provided with a camel load of wheat, etc. And then they, of course, they had to pay for it somehow by other goods. And then he told them, next time you come, you must bring your other brother. Otherwise, if you don't bring him, I will not give you any food provisions whatsoever. So he wanted to see his brother, and he had a plan, which until now we don't know exactly what is his plan, but it will become clearer a little bit further in the story. And then also he asked the servants, the people who help, and the employees who actually help in providing the travelers and the people buying the food, he asked them to put back their commodity. So it was a matter of exchanging the food with something the people bring, rather than just money. So he asked the boys to put their commodity back into their camels. And that really, when they go home, and then they arrive and they open, they look into what the camels are carrying, they'll see that Yusuf gave them the food as well as returned their commodity. So they didn't even, if you like, have to pay for it. He gave them their commodity back. So that gives them another incentive of bringing their brother. So when they arrived, if you remember also, they told their father that next time we're not going to be provided with food unless and until our brother Benjamin comes with us. Then Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, Jacob, he was wary, of course, of such suggestion by them, because he tried them before and they went with Yusuf and they never came back with him. قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين. Can I entrust him to you except as I entrusted his brother, that is Joseph, to you before? But Allah is the best to guard, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy. On the one hand, the father, of course, he wants, and Benjamin was very much beloved to him, and he was much younger than the other brothers, because the 10 brothers were younger, were older than Yusuf and Benjamin. So he was a younger brother and the youngest at that time. So he loved Benjamin so much, and he didn't want him to go with them. So he reminded them, that is Jacob reminded them of their promise before and how they lost Yusuf and came without him. But then he mentions by saying, فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. But Allah is the best of God, and He is the most merciful amongst those who actually show mercy. So there is a way to, if you like, entertain their request, but he would be very much wary. So that is where we ended last week, and today we'll see what happened for this week. I'd like to read some verses before we go ahead with the tafsir. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين. ولما فتحوا متاعهم وجدوا بضاعتهم ردت إليهم قالوا يا أبانا ما نبغي هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا ونمير أهلنا ونحفظ أخانا ونزداد كيل بعير ذلك كيل يسير. قال لن أرسله معكم حتى تؤتون موثقا من الله لتأتونني به إلا أن يحاط بكم. فلما آتوه موثقهم قال الله على ما نقول وكيل. وقال يا بني لا تدخلوا من باب واحد وادخلوا من أبواب متفرقة وما أغني عنكم من الله من شيء إن الحكم إلا لله عليه توكلت وعليه فليتوكل المتوكلون. ولما دخلوا من حيث أمرهم أبوهم ما كان يغني عنهم من الله من شيء إلا حاجة في نفس يعقوب قضاها وإنه لذو علم لما علمناه ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون ولما دخلوا على يوسف آوى إليه أخاه قال إني أنا أخوك فلا تبتئس بما كانوا يعملون فلما جهزهم بجهازهم جعل السقاية في رحل أخيه ثم أذن مؤذن أيتها العير إنكم لسارقون قالوا وأقبلوا عليهم ماذا تفقدون قالوا نفقد صواع الملك ولمن جاء به حمل بعير وأنا به زعيم قالوا تالله لقد علمتم ما جئنا لنفسد في الأرض وما كنا سارقين قالوا فما جزاؤه إن كنتم كاذبين قالوا جزاؤه من وجد في رحله فهو جزاؤه كذلك نجزي الظالمين فبدأ بأوعيتهم قبل وعاء أخيه ثم استخرجها من وعاء أخيه كذلك كدنا ليوسف ما كان ليأخذ أخاه في دين الملك إلا أن يشاء الله نرفع درجات من نشاء وفوق كل ذي علم عليم قالوا إن يسرق فقد سرق أخ له من قبل فأسرها يوسف في نفسه ولم يبدها لهم قال أنتم شر مكانا والله أعلم بما تصفون قالوا يا أيها العزيز إن له أبا شيخا كبيرا فخذ أحدنا مكانه إنا نراك من المحسنين قال معاذ الله أن نأخذ إلا من وجدنا متاعنا عنده إنا إذا لظالمون فلما استيئسوا منه خلصوا نجيا قال كبيرهم ألم تعلموا أن أباكم قد أخذ عليكم موثقا من الله ومن قبل ما فرطتم في يوسف فلن أبرح الأرض حتى يأذن لي أبي أو يحكم الله لي وهو خير الحاكمين ارجعوا إلى أبيكم فقولوا يا أبانا إن ابنك سرق وما شهدنا إلا بما علمنا وما كنا للغيب حافظين واسأل القرية التي كنا فيها والعير التي أقبلنا فيها وإنا لصادقون. So I am at, for those who are following me in the tafsir, I am at ayah 65. So, as we said, as soon as they arrived, they went to their dad, to their father, Yaqub, and they started, if you like, mourning about not being given any food for next time unless and until uh, their brother Benjamin comes with them as a condition. Uh, and then their father was very wary of their request, and he said that, how can I entrust you with him, with Benjamin, or do I trust you with Benjamin as I trusted you before with Yusuf? And then he said, فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. But Allah is the best to guard, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy. Then it seems that this conversation was before they even uh, looked into their baggage. So they did not unpack. So they arrived and immediately went to their father, telling them what happened to them, and that Yusuf, or of course they didn't know Yusuf, but they were they have he has been generous with them, and they were given their enough of the food, but now he wants our brother Joseph to come with us, and if we don't do that, we will not be given any food, not for any one of us. وَلَمَّا فَتَحُوا مَتَاعَهُمْ وَجَدُوا بِضَاعَتَهُمْ رُدَّتْ إِلَيْهِمْ. And when they opened their bags, when they unpacked, if you like, they found their money or their commodity, if you like. It could have been money. It's, in my opinion, it is a little bit unlikely, because the expression here, it says بِضَاعَتَهُمْ, and al-bida'a, it means the commodity. It means commodity, and at that time people exchanged things. So they exchanged clothes for food, and different types of grain for fruits, and so on and so forth. Of course, there was a kind of money at some stage in human history, but even until today, I mentioned that last week, this commodity exchange is known. Money is only a medium, if you like, a way to buy something and to sell something. And when they opened their bags, they found their commodity had been returned to them. Not only they were given the food they went for, the wheat and the grain, etc., but they also found that their commodity that they bought the food with was in their bags. It was returned to them. So they were even much happier than before, and they were more convinced that it is a good business to deal with Al-Aziz or to deal with Yusuf, albeit, of course, they didn't know he was Yusuf, nor did they know that he was their brother. They said, "O our father, what more can we desire?" So when they found that they had been given enough of the food, Yusuf was very generous with them. Their own commodity was returned. So they winning all the way. So they said, "Ya abana ma nabghi." What else do we desire? What more can we ask for? هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا ونمير أهلنا ونحفظ أخانا ونزداد كيل بعير ذلك كيل يسير. O our father, what more can we desire? This, our commodity, has been returned to us, so we shall get more food for our family, and we shall guard our brother and add one more measure of a camel's load. This quantity is easy for the king to give. ذلك كيل يسير, and also كيل يسير, It is easy from the viewpoint of the king of Egypt, represented by his Aziz, by Yusuf, if you like. But also it is for them, it is Kailun Yasir, it is an easy measure. They take a camel's load of food for their family, which is, if you like, 10% more. Instead of 10, they have 11. So 10% more is a good situation to be in. So, Ya Abana ma nabghi. Then they told their father, what else can we ask for? Look, that the people have been very generous with us. Even our own commodity was returned to us. And if our brother Benjamin comes with us, then we'll have an extra load, a camel's load of food, bringing back home to our family. So this is very convincing. And that is how clever Yusuf was. He did it in such a way. On the one hand, he exerted some pressure upon them by saying, if you do not bring your brother, I will not give you any food. But on the other hand, when they opened their bags and unpacked, they realized that their own commodity was returned to them. So the people have been generous with them. What to fear? Not what not to like about this business. So they brought that forth to their father. And by the way, just going back to their commodity. Now, again, if you look at the text in Al-Quran, وَلَمَّا فَتَحُوا مَتَاعَهُمْ وَجَدُوا بِضَاعَتَهُمْ رُدَّتْ إِلَيْهِمْ. So their commodity, بضاعة, means commodity. What they brought with them in the first place to purchase the food was returned to them. Now, it could be money. I doubt if it was money, but it could have been. But remember also at that time, money by its own right may not have been valuable, in a sense that in a famine, people need food. They may need other things, but food is indeed is at a prime. So people would really give anything for food, and anything else would not be as valuable as food. Now, during the pandemic in the last few weeks, especially at the very beginning, people start to panic buy, stocking up with food and other necessary grocery at home. So what is necessary? People were not rushing to buy cars. They were not rushing to buy clothes. That was not important at the time, because at that very time, people have some sort of uncertainty. Of course, maybe not founded because the government was assuring people, but this is human nature. So is the same here. So a commodity would be more valuable to exchange with that food. But on the other hand, it must have been something which had a much smaller, the items were small, because the camel's load, and the camel, by the way, can carry a lot of food. It can withstand hundreds of kilograms carrying them. It's a very strong animal. But you wouldn't waste the space, which is supposed to be food, with something which is, for example, if it was carpets or clothes or something with volume. And also, it seems that during their journey, they did not notice that their commodity was returned to them. So I'm just trying to show you, if we don't know exactly what was that commodity, then in terms of interpretation and tafsir, if we cannot find an interpretation which says it was golden money, or it was silver, or it was anything specific. If we don't know that, so we'll have to go with the text, and also we'll have to go with what really goes with the text in terms of volume, in terms of it was put with the food in such a way that it was not noticeable. So it must have been something which is of a much smaller volume compared with the food, which filled most of the load of the camel. Anyway, that is on the side. So now it is up to Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, Jacob, peace be upon him, to make that decision. Shall we go without, because you're not sending Benjamin with us, or shall we have Benjamin with us, go and bring even more food for next season or next year, as we maybe agreed last time that it was a camel's load per person per year. They can't just give people a camel's load every month or every 2 months, because it has to go. The food has to be enough and sufficient for all, and that was the idea. قال لن أرسله معكم حتى تؤتوني موثقا من الله لتأتونني به إلا أن يحاط بكم فلما آتوه موثقهم قال الله على ما نقول وكيل. Yaqub he said, I will not send him. And by the way, the Arabic text is قال لن أرسله. He said. It didn't say Yaqub said. Why? Because it is not necessary to name Yaqub, to name Jacob, because that was his decision, and it was understood from the previous text that they were having this conversation, this, if you like, argumentation, trying to convince their dad to send Benjamin with them next time they go. So it is his decision now. So it wouldn't, qala, it means he said, someone said. But who was that? This is Jacob, Yaqub. It is understood from the flow of the text. And you find that the style of the Quran, it will not waste the space, even with one extra word that could have been understood elsewhere. He said, I will not send him with you until you swear a solemn oath to me in Allah's name that you will bring him back to me unless you are yourselves surrounded by enemies, etc. Illa yuhata bikum means that, there is bandits or people who would harm you and everybody else. So that is beyond your control. So he was really allowing for that. Illa yuhata bikum, surrounded by enemies. And when they had sworn their solemn oath, he said, Allah is the witness over what we have said. So what Prophet Yaqub is demanding from them is an oath. And he knows that they are going to fulfill the oath, and they're not going to turn back on such an oath. He didn't do that before with them when they took Yusuf. That was a different story. But now he has a previous experience. He doesn't want to repeat. So now he's bringing this oath thing. And let me just say that until today, an oath in a court of law is used. I myself have been a juror in a couple of cases, and they bring you a copy of the Holy Quran to swear by Allah that you will tell the truth, nothing but the truth. And the same with the witnesses, they will have to have this oath. And in the profession, it is very well known procedure, and that is even here in the United Kingdom, depending on the religion of the person. Back home is the same. And the in Islam, there is this is also one of the foundation of the system of justice, the judicial system. It says البينة على من ادعى واليمين على من أنكر. So that is this. This is a prophetic tradition, prophetic hadith. It says that البينة على من ادعى واليمين على من أنكر. البينة, if you are going to accuse someone, because this is how one of the ways is that someone comes to the court and say so and so borrowed money from me and he's not paying me back, or I worked for this person and he didn't pay me, or he took my money, or whatever a claim against another a third party. This is how it starts. Of course, there are other ways, but this is the most common, that people who have contention and they go to court, a party will say that another party did something to them, and then the other party accused need to do something about that. So in Islam, it says al-bayyinatu ala man idda'a. Whoever claims anything against someone else, albeit a person or an establishment or a company, etc., they have to have a proof. Al-bayyina, it means a proof. You need to come with a proof. You have a contract, you have a piece of paper written between you and that person of something, or you have some sort of evidence, witnesses perhaps who were in the area or witnessing the trading or the business that happened between you and that person, and so on. So you need anyone who is claiming against a third party, then they'll have to bring an evidence. Otherwise, وَالْيَمِينُ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ. But if the other person refuses, of course, in this case, there is no proof, because if there is proof, and that proof is beyond a shadow of doubt, then indeed this is taken and the case will go into that direction. But if the proof is not there, and they say, oh, but he did that, or he didn't pay me, or he took that money from me, or he built into my land, etc., and that person did not have a proof of what he is claiming, then the other person who is accused will have to make an oath by Allah, which is al-yaminu ala man ankar, an oath to say that he did not do what he was accused or she was accused of. So that is very much into the judicial system until today, the 21st century, and it is very much respected and accepted in the courts. Here in the United Kingdom, wherever you are, the oath is extremely important. And in this case, Yaqub himself, knowing that his sons will not nullify their oath, he took an oath by Allah, a solemn oath from them, to say that they will bring Benjamin back with them, with the only condition if they were surrounded by thieves or bandits or enemies and something happened to them, then that's another story. He said, I will not send him with you until you swear a solemn oath to me in Allah's name that you will bring him back to me unless you are yourselves surrounded. Surrounded. It says here surrounded in the Arabic text. إلا أن يحاط بكم. Surrounded, it was open-ended. They could have been surrounded by enemies, by thieves, by bandits, um, and so on. And why? And when they had sworn their solemn oath, so they have fulfilled that to their father. They did what their father asked them to do. He said, that is Yaqub, Allah is the witness over what we have said, just to make it even stronger. A solemn oath by Allah that a pious person, the one who believes in Allah and in the hereafter, in the Lord, he will not go against, he will fulfill the oath, but also he is reminding them that Allah is the witness over what we have said. He made sure that he covers himself. How can he entrust them again? And he said that, how can I entrust him to you except as I entrusted his brother Yusuf? So this is the only way out, is to do the oath. And as I mentioned, this is just it shows that this judicial system, the oath, goes thousands of years back to Prophet Abraham and Prophet Isaac and Prophet Jacob and Jesus and Prophet Joseph, and it goes all the way through religions and to Islam as well. وقال يا بني لا تدخلوا من باب واحد وادخلوا من أبواب متفرقة. I did, by the way, said Jesus, I am not really abreast with the judicial system in the Bible, so that was a slip. I imagine that it is very much compliant with that, but I must say that I don't know. So, but it is a system that goes all the way back in history throughout prophethood until today, and you see it in courts across the world. What Yaqub said is, وَقَالَ يَا بَنِيَّ لَا تَدْخُلُوا مِنْ بَابٍ وَاحِدٍ وَادْخُلُوا مِنْ أَبْوَابٍ مُتَفَرِّقَةٍ وَمَا أُغْنِي عَنْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. And he said, O my sons, do not enter by one gate, but enter by different gates, and I cannot avail you against Allah at all. Verily, the decision rests only with Allah. In Him I put my trust, and let all those that trust put their trust in Him. This is another request from Prophet of Allah, Jacob, Yaqub. He said, when you enter Egypt, or enter perhaps the palace, or enter the place where they are going to get their wheat and food from, do not enter from one gate. Remember, there are 11, 10 plus 1 now. And he said, وَادْخُلُوا مِنْ أَبْوَابٍ مُتَفَرِّقَةٍ. So maybe 2 from this gate, 3 from the other gate, another 2 from this gate. And then he says, إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ, judgment and decision rests only with Allah. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. Which means whatever happens next is all entirely to Allah. We cannot prevent what Allah decides. If Allah decides something, with all our precautions, we cannot prevent it, because then Allah will have a wisdom which is above our thoughts and above our planning and above the way we think things will go. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ. This is also very important. عليه توكلت means that I put my trust in Allah. I rely on Him. And this is in Islam called at-tawakkul. And at-tawakkul, reliance on Allah, it means that you do all what is required from you. Because we as believers and as Muslims, we need to do what is necessary. You need to go to work, you need to go through education, you need to put on the right attire to prevent yourself from the cold. You need to guard yourself, like nowadays in the pandemic. You need to take all the precautions not to be to protect yourself and protect others. But then ultimately, after you do all the precautions, you need to rely on Allah, because it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is going to protect us, and who is going to look after us, and He is going to, with His wisdom, make His final decision on the situation. But to rely on Allah, we have to take all the precautions, all the reasons to reach the end goal. And in Islam, there is an expression called "aqilha wa tawakkal," and it talks about a story of a man who brought his horse or camel, and then he put it in front of a place, and he went shopping, or he went to the masjid. It's just a story, not necessarily a prophetic saying, by the way. So when he came out, he didn't find his animal. So the people asked him, what happened? And he said, I lost my animal, but I relied on Allah. They said, no, you should tie your camel first, and then you rely on Allah. Reliance on Allah, of course, reliance is a heartly belief. It is something you believe in your heart, and it is necessary. It is like faith. It is like love, and so on. It is all in the heart, and it's very, very important, because it is the reason for our actions. So reliance on Allah in everything is extremely important. But we can't go to the exam without studying and say we have exerted tawakkul, reliance on Allah. That would not be reliance at all. Reliance is, in this ayah, in this verse, it is very clear that Yaqub, the prophet of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is telling them for something in his heart. He didn't say exactly what. And it doesn't say in the text. We can only look into interpretation from other sources to know what was the intention of Yaqub. He relies on Allah, and he is asking his sons to rely on Allah, but also to do what is necessary. Now, why did he ask his sons to go through different gates? So there are 11. Imagine these are 11 strong brothers. They are strong in their body. They have the reflection of prophethood in their faces. They are the sons of a prophet. They are the grandsons of a prophet, and they are the great grandsons of a prophet. So they have something very special about them. They are also very handsome. So if people look at them, 11 at the same time, they will pick up something which is unusual. Unusual in the sense that, they are special. They are strong. They are faithful. They are handsome. And it may invite someone to hurt them. And some, of course, they talk about what they call the evil eye. People will envy them. So these two concepts of evil eye and the concept of envy, it does exist, but we protect ourselves by remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by doing the dhikr, remembering Allah subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, by praying, by making dua, by supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect ourselves. And what did Yaqub mean exactly? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But we can only guess that he did not want people to harm them because they are very special. And 11 of them at the same time, with all the qualities they had, they were very, very special people, for sure. Even, even though they harmed Yusuf, but they still themselves, they are very special people, for sure. ولما دخلوا من حيث أمرهم أبوهم ما كان يغني عنهم من الله من شيء إلا حاجة في نفس يعقوب قضاها وإنه لذو علم لما علمناه ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. So they actually listened to their dad. Apart from them being so envious of Yusuf, and again, we'll know that they were also envious of Benjamin. But their envy was greatest when it came to Joseph. And I think by doing what they did to Yusuf, I don't think they wanted to do it again, because they're not bad people in the first place. These people are sons of a prophet, who is a son of a prophet, who is a son of a prophet. So these people are still, they make mistakes. And maybe it's a big mistake what they did, for sure, against their brother, against their father. They separated two loving people, a father and a son, for decades. So that is a great sin, for sure. But doesn't mean that they are all evil. And doesn't mean that they're not special. There's still a lot about them that makes them so special, and that's why their dad said, "My sons, when you arrive, just use different gates to enter, so as you do not attract attention." And when they entered according to their father's advice, so they took the advice of their father and did not forget or did not go against it in any way. And when they entered according to the father's advice, it did not avail them in the least against the will of Allah. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills something for a wisdom that Allah knows, and we know that there is a wisdom here, ultimately it is the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that something happened to them, but it's all leading perhaps to something which is ultimately good. And when they entered according to the father's advice, it did not avail them in the least against the will of Allah. It was but a need of Yaqub's inner self which he discharged. إلا حاجة في نفس يعقوب قضاها. He gave them a piece of advice that he felt something في نفس يعقوب, in his inner self. So he did not tell them why. He just said what he said without giving reasons. Why? The reasons stay in Jacob's inner self. But whatever reasons he had, it will not avail them from against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the least. And verily, he was endowed with knowledge because he had taught him, because we had taught him, but most men know not. وإنه لذو علم لما علمناه ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. So here in the Quran it says clearly that he had knowledge. So he gave that piece of advice as to his sons based on knowledge. And this knowledge is very much praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here in this verse in Al-Quran. So there was a reason, and that reason was based on and founded upon knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Jacob as a prophet, but most people know not. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون, but most men or most people know not. Okay, so they entered now, and then of course they'll have to seek what they came for. ولما دخلوا على يوسف آوى إليه أخاه قال إني أنا أخوك فلا تبتئس بما كانوا يعملون. And when they went in before Yusuf, he betook his brother Benjamin to himself and said, verily, I am your brother. So grieve not for what they used to do. Now, it is obvious what that is. They are 11, and what happened is Yusuf used to receive people, and if they're coming from a long distance and they have to stay overnight, so he would provide accommodation for them. And his system was that he would give a quarter for every two, so like an apartment for every two, so 5 for the 10 brothers. And then he said, okay, you Benjamin, you can come and stay with me. So that was Yusuf's plan. So that night Yusuf told his brother, look, I am Yusuf. And he told his brother the story, what happened to him, because that part of the story is not known. It was not known to the father, only known to the brothers, who of course concealed it. But Yusuf knew, and he told his brother Benjamin about his story, what his brothers did to him when he was a boy, threw him in the well, and he was picked up by travelers, sold as a slave, and he told them everything. But he also made sure that Benjamin does not tell his brothers. And Yusuf also told Benjamin, that, look, I have a plan to keep you here with me. So don't worry, and don't tell anyone that I told you that I'm Yusuf. So that is a secret between us two, but also I have a plan to keep you with me. And also he said something, قال إني أنا أخوك فلا تبتئس بما كانوا يعملون. So the whole thing, of course, it's there is a piece of story behind this verse number 69. He said, verily, I am your brother, so grieve not for what they used to do. So look, the whole long story that between Yusuf and Benjamin, which must have been, sort of like an hour or a couple of hours story telling him what happened and so on. But he also said, فَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Do not grieve, or so grieve not for what they used to do. Now, you can understand this in two ways, or in both of the two ways. One immediate way is to say that Yusuf was hurt and harmed because by his brothers. So he said, don't worry, don't grieve because of what they have done to me. So it's just it is a way to dampen any grievance or any feeling that Benjamin may have against his brothers for what they have done for Yusuf. Because until that point, the story was a wolf devoured Yusuf. So it wasn't their fault. It is not the fault of these 10 brothers. But now, Benjamin knows the correct version of the story by Yusuf himself. He went through the experience. So that is one way to understand it. The other way is to believe also that these 10 brothers were envious of Benjamin as well as they were envious from Joseph before. And their envy did not, of course, lead them to do what they did with Yusuf, but indeed they may have been nasty to Benjamin. So he said to his brother, don't worry about them being nasty to you. So if you compare what happened to me and being a little bit difficult or nasty to you because you have more attention by your dad and probably more love, فلا تبتئس بما كانوا يعملون. So grieve not for what they used to do. So that is another way of understanding that bit of the ayah. But also we can combine these two. There is no contradiction between the two parts of the two ways of understanding this bit. So on the one hand, grieve not for what they used to do to me until now I'm Al-Aziz and I am in a good position, and what is in the past stays in the past. And if they have been nasty to you, also grieve not over them being nasty, because things will improve now. We have a plan, and I'll make sure that you stay with me. So there is, in my opinion, there is no contradiction if we put these two possibilities together, and so they work. فلما جهزهم بجهازهم جعل السقاية في رحل أخيه ثم أذن مؤذن أيتها العير إنكم لسارقون. So the next part of this story is that now they are going home. There are 11 camels that need to be supplied and loaded with the food from Egypt to go back to their families, including that of Benjamin. How can he keep his brother back without telling that he was Yusuf, without exposing himself? Because until this point, it seems that Yusuf does not want his 10 brothers to know him. So he's going along with not telling the 10 brothers that he was Yusuf. So, and even whatever he said, it would have been extremely difficult to keep Benjamin back. So if he said, oh, can Benjamin stay with me? They would say, no. We have been given we have given an oath, a solemn oath by Allah to our dad to bring him back. So they're not going to leave him with Yusuf or with whoever, not voluntarily, for sure. So Yusuf had to do something to keep his brother back. Let me just read this ayah for you, the translation, and then I'm sure if Allah gives enough life, we can see what happens next. So when he had furnished them forth with their provisions, he put the golden bowl into his brother's bag. Then a crier cried, "O you in the caravan, surely you are thieves." So basically what Yusuf did, the measure, it's a volume measure, مكيال, to measure the food. And we have, even until today, we measure things in weight and we measure things in volume. Water, for example, is measured in volume, and oftentimes when you send containers or import containers, they may have to fulfill a weight limit, but for sure they have to fulfill a volume uh, limit, which fits into a container, and so on. And the pricing will be according to that. So at that time, they used that measure of it's a bowl or a cup, if you like, because here it says as-siqaya. So, and they used to measure the amount of food given to the people asking for that food. And it was made of gold. Some they say it was in silver. In my opinion, it's more likely to be in gold. And why? Even if you look back in the history of measures, uh, the inch and the foot, etc., at some stage people made it into gold. So as it is a benchmark, and people say this is the yard, or this is the foot, and this is an inch. So that was to signify the power of the king, and that this measure is decreed by the king, and it is a fair measure for everyone. So it was made of gold. So after he provided them and put the food into their bags in the camels, he inserted that into Benjamin's bag. And then أذن مؤذن, someone who cried very loudly, أيتها العير إنكم لسارقون, O you in the caravan, surely you are thieves. Now we leave it at that, and inshallah, by the will of Allah, if we have enough life until next week, inshallah, we'll explain more. Thank you very much for listening and for viewing. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.